I pulled my daughter out of a grave at 2 a.m. She was 8 years old, standing in a hole 4 feet deep, shivering so violently I could hear her teeth chattering from 10 feet away. The temperature was 40 degrees and dropping. Her pajamas were soaked through with mud and frost, clinging to her small body like a second skin. When she saw me climbing down into that hole, her eyes went wide, and she whispered something I will never forget. "Mommy, you came. Grandma said you were not coming back." I wrapped my army jacket around her and lifted her out, feeling how cold her skin was, how fragile her bones felt in my arms. She pressed her face against my neck and I could feel the ice of her cheeks burning into my flesh. I started walking toward the house, toward my car, toward anywhere that was not this nightmare. But then she grabbed my collar and pulled her lips close to my ear. Her voice was barely a breath. "Mommy, do not look in the other hole. Please do not look." I looked anyway. My flashlight swept across the yard and found it, 20 feet away. Another hole, this one covered with rotting wooden boards. I set Lily in my car first, started the engine, blasted the heat, locked the doors. Then I went back. I moved the boards aside and pointed my light down into the darkness. What I saw stopped my heart. Bones. Small bones. A skull no bigger than a softball. Scraps of fabric that might once have been a dress with yellow flowers. This was not discipline. This was not punishment. This was a grave, and the child inside it had been dead for years. 6 hours earlier, I had been the happiest woman on that transport plane. My name is Rachel Morgan. I am a Sergeant First Class in the United States Army Logistics Division. I had been deployed to Kuwait for 8 months, shuffling supplies across a desert that never ended, counting down the days until I could hold my daughter again. Then the diplomatic situation shifted overnight, the mission ended early, and I caught the first transport home. 3 days ahead of schedule. I was going to surprise them. The flight took 14 hours. I did not sleep for a single minute of it. I kept thinking about Lily, about the way she laughed when I tickled her feet, about the birthday I had missed by 3 weeks, about all the bedtime stories I owed her. I thought about my husband, Marcus, about how he would smile when he saw me walk through the door. I thought about normal life, school pickups, weekend soccer games, dinner at the kitchen table with my family. I had already submitted my transfer papers. Administrative position at Fort Campbell. No more deployments. I was coming home for good. I texted Marcus from the airport when I landed. Just 2 words came back. Drive safe. No excitement. No questions about my flight. No mention of Lily. Looking back, that should have been my first warning. I pulled into our driveway at 11:17 at night. The house was dark. Not peaceful dark, the kind that comes when everyone is sleeping soundly. Wrong dark. Marcus always left the porch light on when I was coming home. He had done it for 15 years, ever since our first apartment. That light was his way of saying welcome back. Tonight, it was off. I let myself in quietly, still planning to surprise them. The living room was cluttered in a way that was not like Marcus. Dishes in the sink, mail scattered on the counter, empty beer bottles on the coffee table. Marcus rarely drank. He was asleep on the couch, still wearing his work clothes, one arm hanging off the edge. Something cold started forming in my stomach, but I pushed it down. Deployment does things to your mind. You see threats everywhere. You forget that civilian life is messy sometimes. I told myself I was overreacting. I climbed the stairs to check on Lily. Her door still had the princess stickers she had picked out before I left. I pushed it open, already imagining her face when she woke up and saw me. But the room was empty. The bed was made too neatly, the way you make a bed when no one has slept in it for days. Her stuffed cat, Mr. Whiskers, the one she had slept with since she was 2 years old, was gone. Her shoes were not by the door. In her closet, I could see gaps where clothes should have been. On her nightstand, where she always kept our photo from Disney World, there was nothing. Just a clean circle in the dust where the frame used to be. A mother knows. Before the brain processes the evidence, the body already understands. My hands were shaking before I could name what was wrong. I went back downstairs and shook Marcus awake. He came up slowly, blinking, confused. Then he saw me and something flickered across his face. Not joy, not relief. Something that looked almost like annoyance. "Eric, what are you doing here? You are not supposed to be back until Friday. Where is Lily?" He sat up, rubbing his face. "She is at Mom's. She has been acting out. Tantrums, refusing to do homework, talking back. Mom offered to take her for a few days. Teach her some discipline." The word hit me like a slap. Discipline. "You sent our daughter away without telling me?" I tried to call. Bad connection at the base. I sent emails. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No emails. I looked at Marcus, and he could not hold my gaze. "How long has she been there?" He paused 1 second too long. "Since Tuesday. 4 days. My daughter had been gone for 4 days, and he had not mentioned it once in our video calls. I am going to get her." He tried to stop me. "It is almost midnight," he said. "You will wake them up. Just wait until morning." But I was already grabbing my keys, already moving toward the door. And Marcus did not follow. He did not offer to come with me. He just sat there on the couch, watching me leave. That was wrong too. Everything was wrong. The drive to Dorothy's property took 50 minutes through winding mountain roads. She lived deep in rural Tennessee, in a farmhouse that had been in the Morgan family for generations. I had never liked the place. It was too quiet, too isolated, too far from anything resembling normal life. But Marcus insisted his mother was harmless. Old-fashioned, yes. Strict, yes. But harmless. I called Dorothy 3 times during the drive. No answer. I called Marcus once. He picked up on the 4th ring and told me I was overreacting. I hung up on him. The farmhouse appeared through the trees just after midnight. Dark windows, no porch light, no sign of life. But around back, I could see a faint glow. A motion sensor floodlight, illuminating something in the yard. I walked around the house, my boots crunching on frozen grass. The light caught shapes in the ground. Holes. Small rectangular holes. Like graves dug for children. Then I heard crying. I ran toward the sound, pulling out my phone for the flashlight, and there she was. My daughter. Standing in a hole in the ground, arms wrapped around herself, covered in mud and frost, crying so quietly it was almost silent. She looked up at me and her face crumpled. "Mommy?" I was in that hole in 2 seconds, lifting her out, feeling how cold she was, how broken. She clung to me like I was the only solid thing in the world. "Grandma said, 'Bad girls sleep in graves until they learn to be good,'" she whispered. "She said if I cried, I had to stay longer." I carried her toward the car, heart pounding, rage building, every instinct screaming at me to get her out of here. But as we passed the second hole, the one covered with boards, Lily grabbed my collar. "Do not look, Mommy. Please do not look." I looked, and I found the bones, and I understood that my daughter had been hours away from joining them. I was loading Lily into the car when the back door of the farmhouse opened. Dorothy Morgan stood in the doorway, backlit by the kitchen light, wearing a nightgown and an expression that should have been shock, but was instead perfectly calm. She looked at me, at Lily in my arms, at the boards I had moved from the second hole. And then she spoke, her voice as steady as a Sunday sermon. "You should not have come home early, Rachel. You were not supposed to see this." I did not answer Dorothy. I did not even look at her. I turned my back on that woman and walked straight to my car, holding my daughter against my chest like she was the only thing keeping me alive. Because in that moment, she was. Dorothy called after me. Her voice carried across the frozen yard, calm and reasonable, like she was discussing the weather. "Rachel, let us talk about this. You are overreacting. It is a teaching method. The cold builds character." My mother did the same for me, and I turned out fine. I kept walking. I opened the car door, slid into the driver's seat with Lily still in my arms, and locked every door. The heat was already blasting. I pulled off Lily's soaked pajamas and wrapped her in the emergency blanket I kept in my army bag. Her skin was ice, her lips were blue. She was shaking so hard I could feel it in my own bones. I had carried wounded soldiers through enemy fire. I had stayed calm when mortars exploded 10 feet from my position. But nothing had ever terrified me like the feeling of my daughter's frozen body pressed against mine. Nothing. I held her until the shaking slowed. I held her until her breathing steadied. And then I picked up my phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered on the second ring. 911, what is your emergency? I kept my voice steady. Military training. Crisis mode. I found human remains on a property. A child's remains. I also found my daughter in a hole in the ground. She needs medical attention for hypothermia. The dispatcher's tone changed. Sharper now, more focused. Can you give me the address, ma'am? I gave her the address. Dorothy Morgan's property, rural Henderson County, Tennessee. There was a pause. Too long. Then the dispatcher spoke again, and something in her voice made my skin crawl. Ma'am, did you say the Morgan property? She knew. Before I finished the address, she knew exactly which property I meant. In a county with probably 50 families named Morgan, she did not ask for clarification. She did not ask which road or what town. She just knew. Units are on the way, the dispatcher said. Please stay on the line. I asked the question I already knew the answer to. Has there been a report about this property before? Another pause. Ma'am, I am not able to discuss that. Officers will be there shortly. She hung up. I sat in the darkness holding my daughter, watching Dorothy's silhouette in the farmhouse doorway. Waiting. Lily started talking. Not to me exactly. More like the words were spilling out of her. Fragments she could not hold inside anymore. Grandma said the cold teaches us. Bad girls sleep in graves until they are good again. I was only supposed to be in for 1 hour. But I could not stop crying. Crying makes it longer. I stroked her hair, kept my voice soft. How long were you in the hole tonight, sweetheart? I do not know. It was still light when Grandma put me in. Then it got dark. Then it got really cold. I tried to be quiet. I tried so hard. That was at least 8 hours. 8 hours in 40-degree weather. My 8-year-old daughter, standing in a hole in the ground, trying not to cry so she would not make it worse. Has Grandma done this before? Put you in the hole before? Lily nodded against my chest. Last time Daddy brought me. And the time before that. The air left my lungs. When was the last time? When you were away before? In the summer. Daddy said you did not need to know because you would just worry. 3 times. At least 3 times my husband had sent our daughter to be tortured, and he had hidden it from me. Every deployment, every mission, every month I spent serving my country, he had been sending her here. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. Daddy said Grandma would fix me. He said I was broken and Grandma knew how to fix broken girls. I held her tighter. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive back to my house and tear Marcus apart with my bare hands. But Lily needed me calm. Lily needed me present. So I breathed through the rage and I waited for help to arrive. The sheriff's deputies showed up 20 minutes later. 2 of them. No sirens, no urgency, no sense that they had just received a report about child remains. They pulled up slowly, got out of their cruiser slowly, walked toward my car like they had all the time in the world. I stepped out to meet them. I identified myself. Sergeant First Class Rachel Morgan, United States Army. I found human remains in the backyard. My daughter requires medical attention. The deputies exchanged a look. I saw it. That flicker of recognition when I said the name Morgan. The older deputy, name tag reading Harding, nodded slowly. Ma'am, you say you found remains? I led them to the second hole. I showed them the bones, the skull, the scraps of fabric. They looked, but their reaction was wrong. Muted, controlled, almost rehearsed. Like they had seen this before and knew exactly how to respond. Deputy Harding spoke into his radio. We will need to secure the scene. Call in forensics. He did not sound alarmed. He sounded like he was checking boxes on a form. The back door of the farmhouse opened again. Dorothy stepped out, wrapped in a robe now, carrying a cup of tea. She walked toward us with perfect composure. And when she reached the deputies, something happened that made my blood turn to ice. Deputy Harding touched the brim of his hat. A gesture of respect. "Good evening, Mrs. Morgan. Sorry to disturb you." They knew her. They were comfortable with her. This woman with children's bones in her backyard, and the local police greeted her like a respected neighbor. I stepped between them. "There is a child's skeleton in that hole. This is a crime scene. I want the FBI involved." Harding's expression shifted. Just slightly. Just enough. "Ma'am, let us not get ahead of ourselves. Could be old remains, could be animal bones. No need to bring in the federal government over what might be nothing." Dorothy nodded in agreement. Rachel has always been dramatic. Military life has made her paranoid. I am sure we can sort this out in the morning. I was done listening. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had not used in 2 years. Diane Holloway, FBI Special Agent, Crimes Against Children Unit. We had been roommates at basic training 20 years ago. She had gone federal while I stayed enlisted, but we had kept in touch, and right now, she was the only person I trusted. She answered on the second ring, despite the hour. "Rachel, what is going on?" I told her everything. The empty bedroom, the drive through the mountains, the hole, my daughter, the bones, the deputies who seemed more interested in protecting Dorothy than investigating a crime scene. Diane listened without interrupting. When I finished, her voice was sharp. "You said Dorothy Morgan, Henderson County, Tennessee?" "Yes. Rachel, I need you to listen carefully. Do not let those deputies dismiss this. Do not leave that property until I have federal agents en route. Can you do that?" "What do you know, Diane?" "I cannot say yet, but that property has been on my radar before. I need to make some calls. I will call you back in 20 minutes. She hung up. I stood there in the cold, watching the deputies talk to Dorothy in low voices, watching them nod along to whatever lies she was telling them. I thought about my daughter in the car. I thought about the bones in the ground. I thought about every time Marcus had sent Lily here while I was overseas, trusting him, believing him. Diane called back in 23 minutes. Her voice was different now, urgent, focused. "Rachel, I ran a preliminary check on that property. It has been flagged in our system before. Flagged for what? 3 years ago, during a family gathering at that property, a child went missing, 7 years old. The case went cold. No body, no evidence, no witnesses willing to talk. The investigation was closed after 6 months. My blood went cold. What was the child's name?" A pause. Then Diane said the words that changed everything. The child's name was Ellie Brennan. Her mother was Caroline Morgan, Marcus's younger sister. I could not breathe. Marcus had a sister. He had never mentioned her. Not once in 10 years of marriage. Not one photograph, not one story, not one holiday memory. She had been erased from his life completely. Marcus never told me he had a sister. Diane's voice was grim. Caroline Morgan died in a car accident about 10 years ago, 3 months after she reported her daughter missing, 3 months after she filed a complaint against Dorothy Morgan for child abuse. I looked at the farmhouse. I looked at Dorothy, still talking to the deputies like nothing was wrong. I looked at my daughter sleeping in the car, exhausted and broken, but alive. Diane spoke again, and her words hit me like a bullet. "Rachel, I do not think Ellie Brennan went missing. I think you just found her. I did not trust the local hospitals. I did not trust anyone in Henderson County. So I drove 45 minutes in the opposite direction to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital in Nashville, with Lily wrapped in my army jacket and the emergency blanket and every piece of clothing I could find in my car. The drive was silent except for her occasional whimpers. She drifted in and out of sleep, her small body still trembling even with the heat blasting. I kept one hand on the wheel and one hand on her, needing to feel her breathing, needing to know she was still there. My mind would not stop racing. Marcus has a sister he never mentioned. A sister who died. A niece who disappeared. I replayed every conversation, every holiday dinner, every family gathering. Dorothy had never mentioned Caroline either. It was like the woman had been erased from existence. And now I knew why. At the hospital, I carried Lily through the emergency room doors and explained the situation to the first nurse I saw. Found in a hole, exposed to cold for at least 8 hours. Possible hypothermia. The nurse's face went pale, and suddenly there were doctors everywhere, taking Lily from my arms, putting her on a gurney, wheeling her away. A doctor examined her while I stood in the corner, refusing to leave. Mild hypothermia, early signs of frostbite on 3 of her toes, severe emotional trauma. They asked questions. How long was she exposed? Has this happened before? I answered honestly, I do not know. I just found out my husband has been sending her to his mother without my knowledge. The doctor's expression told me everything I needed to know about how that sounded. They admitted Lily for observation. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand, watching the monitors track her heartbeat. Every beep reminded me she was alive. Every beep reminded me how close I had come to losing her. 3 hours later, Marcus walked through the door. I had called him from the road, told him only that Lily was hurt and we were at the emergency room. I expected him to be frantic. I expected him to burst through that door with fear on his face and questions on his lips. I expected him to act like a father. Instead, he walked in slowly. He looked at Lily in the hospital bed. He looked at me. And the expression on his face was not panic. It was not fear. It was annoyance. Inconvenience. Like I had interrupted something important. What the hell, Rachel? I woke up, and you were gone. No note, nothing. I stared at him. This man I had married. This man I had trusted with our daughter. I went to get Lily, the daughter you sent to your mother 4 days ago without telling me. He crossed his arms. I told you she needed discipline. Mom knows how to handle difficult children. Difficult? She is 8 years old, Marcus. And I found her standing in a hole in the ground at 2 a.m. Something flickered across his face. Not surprise, recognition. He knew about the holes. He had always known. I stood up slowly. I kept my voice steady even though every cell in my body was screaming. I found bones, Marcus. A child's bones buried in your mother's backyard. He shook his head. That is not possible. You must have seen something else. Animal bones, maybe. I have seen human remains. I have served 3 tours. Those are human bones, a child's bones, and the FBI is already involved. At the mention of FBI, Marcus went pale, actually pale, like the blood had drained from his face. That was when I knew for certain. He knew something. He knew everything. Who is Ellie Brennan? He froze. Complete stillness. The kind of stillness that only comes when someone is caught. I pressed harder. She was your niece, was she not? Caroline's daughter. How do you know that name? How do I not know it, Marcus? You never told me you had a sister. 10 years of marriage and you never mentioned Caroline. Not once. He rubbed his face with both hands. And then he said something that stopped my heart. Caroline was always causing problems. She never knew when to leave things alone. Was. He used past tense, like he had rehearsed it. Like her death was just another inconvenient fact he had filed away. I made him talk. It took an hour of pushing, but I made him tell me about Caroline, his younger sister, 3 years behind him. She had Ellie young at 19, with a man who disappeared before the baby was born. She struggled, single mother, no stable job, constantly asking Dorothy for help. And Dorothy helped by taking Ellie for extended periods. Discipline, Marcus called it. Structure. 3 years ago, during Thanksgiving at Dorothy's property, Ellie wandered off and was never found. Caroline blamed Dorothy. She filed police reports. She filed complaints with Child Protective Services. She accused her own mother of something unspeakable. The investigations went nowhere. No evidence, no witnesses. Every complaint was dismissed within a week. And then Caroline died. A car accident on a mountain road 3 months after Ellie disappeared. Single vehicle, lost control, no witnesses. She was drinking, Marcus said. Could not handle the grief. Lost control of the car. The words sounded rehearsed, memorized, like a story he had told himself so many times he almost believed it. I asked the question that had been burning in my chest. If Caroline filed complaints against Dorothy, where are those reports now? He looked away. Mom has friends. In the department. They understood it was a misunderstanding. A nurse interrupted us. She needed to check Lily's vitals. I stepped aside and let her work, watching Marcus from across the room. He stood by the window, staring out at nothing, his jaw tight. The nurse finished her checks and made a note on her chart. Then she said something that made everything worse. Poor thing. She is the second child from your family we have seen in the past few years with similar exposure symptoms. I turned to her. What do you mean? What other child? She hesitated, realized she had said too much. I should not have said anything. Medical records are confidential. I am sorry. She left quickly, avoiding my eyes. But the damage was done. Second child. There had been another child from this family in this hospital with similar injuries. And no one had stopped it. No one had connected the dots. An hour later, Special Agent Diane Holloway walked into the hospital room. She looked exactly as I remembered. Sharp, focused, no nonsense. She had brought a colleague with her, a man named Agent Torres who specialized in forensic evidence. Diane and I embraced briefly. 20 years of friendship in that hug. She asked to speak privately. We found an empty waiting room down the hall, and Diane spread files across a table. Printouts, photos, documents. The FBI has been aware of Dorothy Morgan's property for years, she said. Multiple anonymous tips about unusual activity with children. But every investigation was stonewalled. Lack of evidence, uncooperative witnesses, jurisdictional issues. Local law enforcement consistently classified complaints as unfounded. She showed me a photograph, a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile, holding a baby girl in a yellow dress. Caroline Morgan. And little Ellie. Caroline tried to stop this, Diane said. She filed 3 separate complaints. Each one was dismissed within a week. I looked at the photo, at the woman I had never known, at the child who was probably buried in Dorothy's backyard. Diane's voice was quiet but certain. Rachel, I believe Caroline was killed because she would not stop pushing. And I believe her daughter Ellie has been in that backyard for 3 years. She pulled out more documents. Dorothy Morgan, former elementary school teacher, fired 15 years ago for excessive disciplinary measures. A student came to school with bruises. Investigation revealed Dorothy had locked her in a closet for 3 hours. The school board let her go quietly, no charges, no public record. After that, Dorothy started her informal discipline program. Word spread through churches, community groups, desperate parents. She presented herself as a last resort for problem children. No paperwork, no oversight, no accountability. Parents paid in cash. Children stayed for days, sometimes weeks. Most came home quieter. More obedient. They never talked about what happened. Some never came home at all. Diane showed me a list. At least 8 children had passed through that property in the last decade. Most were returned, traumatized but alive. But 3 names had question marks beside them. Ellie Brennan, a boy named Marcus Weber Jr., a girl named Sophia Delgado. All reported as runaways or accidents, all connected to Dorothy's property. I stared at the list. 3 missing children, 3 cold cases, all linked to one woman, and my daughter had been next. Diane pulled out one final document. Bank records. I saw Marcus's name, monthly transfers to Dorothy's account for the past 4 years. The amounts increased over time. The most recent payment was 2 weeks before my deployment. Your husband has been paying his mother to take children, Diane said, including, it appears, your daughter. From the hallway, I heard Marcus's voice. He was on his phone, speaking low and urgent. I could not hear most of it. But I caught one phrase, and it made my blood run cold. She knows too much. We need to talk to Vanessa. I looked at Diane, one question burned in my mind. Who the hell is Vanessa? I left Lily at the hospital under armed guard. Diane had arranged it. 2 FBI agents stationed outside her door, credentials checked for everyone who entered. My daughter was safe for now. But I needed to see the excavation myself. I needed to understand what she had almost become. The drive back to Dorothy's property felt different in daylight. The mountains that had seemed menacing in the darkness now looked deceptively peaceful. Green hills rolling toward a blue sky. The kind of scenery that belonged on postcards, not crime scene reports. I passed a spot on the mountain road where a faded wooden cross stood by the guardrail. Someone had planted flowers there once, but they were dead now. Just dried stems and a weathered ribbon. I slowed down and read the name carved into the cross. Caroline Morgan. This was where she had gone off the road 10 years ago. This was where her fight had ended. I thought about her, about the courage it must have taken to file those complaints, knowing her own family would turn against her. About the loneliness of fighting a battle no one else believed was real. She had tried to save her daughter. She had tried to expose the truth, and they had killed her for it. I was going to finish what she started. Dorothy's property had been transformed. FBI vehicles lined the gravel driveway. Yellow crime scene tape stretched across the yard. White forensic tents covered sections of the ground. Agents in protective suits moved methodically through the backyard, their movements careful and precise. Diane met me at the perimeter and walked me to an observation point away from the active work. The backyard had been divided into a grid pattern, each section marked with numbered flags. 2 excavation sites were active. One was the hole where I had found Lily. The other was the grave I had discovered in the darkness. A 3rd site had been marked with red flags. Ground-penetrating radar had detected another anomaly. They were preparing to dig. I watched the forensic technicians work. They used brushes and small tools, treating the ground like an archaeological site, careful, methodical, respectful. These were not just bones to them. These were children who deserved to be found. Agent Torres approached with an update. His face was grim. We have confirmed 2 sets of remains. First set is a female child, approximately 7 years old, deceased 3 to 4 years. Second set is a male child, approximately 5 years old, deceased 6 to 7 years. The ages matched. Ellie Brennan would have been 7 when she disappeared 3 years ago. The boy could be Marcus Weber Jr., missing for 6 years. I asked about the 3rd site. Torres shook his head. We are still excavating. But preliminary scans suggest there may be more. He handed me an evidence bag. Inside was a small bracelet, tarnished but still readable. The name Ellie was spelled out in pink letter beads. I remembered the photograph Diane had shown me. The same bracelet on the wrist of a smiling toddler in her mother's arms. Movement near the farmhouse drew my attention. FBI agents were bringing Dorothy out. She was in handcuffs, wearing a housecoat, her gray hair loose around her shoulders. I expected rage or fear or defiance. Instead, her face was perfectly calm, serene, almost beatific, like she was walking to church instead of a prison transport. As the agents led her past my observation point, Dorothy stopped. She looked directly at me and spoke in a voice as steady as stone. You do not understand. None of you understand. I was saving them. Discipline saves souls. The cold purifies. The darkness teaches. I held her gaze. You killed children. I corrected them. Some corrections are permanent. It is not my fault their spirits were too weak. An agent pulled her forward, toward the waiting SUV, but Dorothy was not finished. She called out one last thing, her voice carrying across the yard. Lily was almost ready. 2 more nights, and she would have been fixed. You interrupted God's work, Rachel. The words hit me like a physical blow. 2 more nights. My daughter had been 2 nights away from becoming another body in that yard. Diane introduced me to an elderly woman standing near the perimeter. Mrs. Peggy Whitmore, 74 years old. She lived half a mile down the road and had known Dorothy for 30 years. She had been giving a statement to FBI agents, and her face was streaked with tears. "I heard things over the years," she said. Her voice trembled. "Crying at night, children crying." But Dorothy always had an explanation. Bad dreams, homesick kids, television shows turned up too loud. She looked at the forensic tents, at the holes in the ground, at the evidence of horrors she had lived beside for decades. "Sometimes I saw children in the yard. They never waved, never smiled. They looked empty, like something had been taken out of them." I asked if she had ever reported her concerns. Once, about 5 years ago. I called the sheriff. A deputy came out, talked to Dorothy for 10 minutes, told me everything was fine, said I was imagining things. I knew before I asked. "Which deputy?" Mrs. Whitmore wiped her eyes. "Harding. Deputy Harding. The same deputy who had arrived first last night, the one who had greeted Dorothy with respect." A black Mercedes pulled up to the crime scene perimeter, and a woman stepped out. Tall, sharp-featured, expensive suit, designer sunglasses. She approached the yellow tape with the confidence of someone who expected it to move for her. Diane intercepted her, asked for identification. The woman's voice was smooth and professional. "I am Vanessa Morgan. Dorothy Morgan is my mother. I am also her attorney." So this was Vanessa, Marcus's sister, the one he had been calling from the hospital hallway. I studied her carefully. She was everything Dorothy was not. Polished, controlled, modern. But her eyes were the same. Cold calculation behind a pleasant mask. Vanessa demanded to see her mother, citing attorney-client privilege. Diane explained that Dorothy had already been transported for processing. Vanessa could see her at the federal building. Then Vanessa turned her attention to me. Her smile did not reach her eyes. "You must be Rachel. Marcus has told me about you. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. My mother is elderly, confused. She was only trying to help these children." I said nothing, just watched her. Vanessa stepped closer to the tape. "We should talk, Rachel, family to family. I am sure we can find a way to resolve this that does not destroy everyone's lives, including yours." The threat was barely disguised. She was already calculating how to make this disappear. After Vanessa left, Diane shared more background. Dorothy Morgan had taught elementary school for 18 years. She was known for strict discipline, old-school methods that parents appreciated and children feared. 15 years ago, she was forced to resign after a student came to school with bruises. Investigation revealed Dorothy had locked the girl in a closet for 3 hours as punishment for talking back. The school board let her go quietly. No charges, no public record, just a quiet retirement. After that, Dorothy started her informal discipline program. Word spread through churches and community groups. Desperate parents who could not control their children. Families who wanted the old ways of correction. Dorothy presented herself as a last resort. Tough love. Results guaranteed. No paperwork, no oversight, no questions asked. Parents paid in cash. Children stayed for days, sometimes weeks. Most came home quieter, more obedient. They never spoke about what happened at Grandma Dorothy's house. Agent Torres called Diane and me to the farmhouse. They had found something in Dorothy's bedroom, a locked trunk hidden in the back of her closet. Inside the trunk were meticulous records. Dorothy was organized, precise, thorough. She had kept folders on every child who had passed through her program. Photographs, notes on behavior, logs of treatments administered. Treatments. That was the word she used. The logs detailed her methods: isolation in holes, cold exposure, food deprivation, physical restraint, hours and days documented in neat handwriting, outcomes recorded in a final column: corrected, released, resistant, terminated. Torres handed me a folder with a pink tab. The name on the front made my heart stop. Lily Morgan. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was everything. Photographs of my daughter at different ages, notes on her defiant behavior, a log of previous visits I had never known about. 3 entries. 3 separate times Marcus had sent her to Dorothy while I was deployed. I turned to the last page. A chart like a patient progress report, columns for dates, treatments, responses, and a final column labeled status. Lily's most recent entry was dated 4 days ago, the day Marcus had dropped her off. Treatment listed: extended isolation, cold exposure, sensory deprivation, duration listed as open-ended, and in the status column 2 words in Dorothy's neat handwriting: in progress. Below that, a note: resistant. May require permanent solution. Consult with V before proceeding. V. Vanessa. They had been planning to kill my daughter, and they had put it in writing. I needed to go home. Not to the place I had shared with Marcus, not anymore. But I needed documents. I needed clothes for Lily. And I needed to understand what my husband had been planning while I was serving my country overseas. Diane gave me copies of everything from Dorothy's files: the photographs, the logs, the folder with Lily's name on it. Evidence that my daughter had been scheduled for a permanent solution. Evidence that the man I had married had been part of it. I called Sergeant Kim Reyes from the road. Kim was my closest friend from the base. Former Army supply specialist, now working private security. We had served together for 8 years. I trusted her with my life. I was about to trust her with something more important. I need backup, I told her. I am going to the house. Marcus might be there. Kim did not ask questions. She just said she would meet me in 20 minutes. The drive gave me too much time to think. I replayed our marriage in my head. 10 years. The early days when Marcus had seemed charming and attentive. The gradual distance that grew between us as my deployments got longer. His impatience with Lily. His insistence that she needed firmer discipline. His constant comparisons to other children. The signs had been there. I just had not wanted to see them. Kim was waiting in my driveway when I arrived. She had her service weapon on her hip and a look on her face that said she was ready for trouble. Marcus's car was gone. The house was dark. We entered carefully, Kim covering the corners while I moved through the rooms. Empty. He had not been back since the hospital. The house felt different now, like a stage set designed to fool me. The family photographs on the walls, the kitchen where we had shared meals, the living room where Lily had taken her first steps. All of it felt fake, a performance of normalcy hiding something rotten underneath. I headed straight for Marcus's home office, the one room he had always kept locked. He said it was for work confidentiality, banking regulations, client privacy. I had never questioned it. The door was locked now, but I knew where he kept the spare key, behind the family photograph in the hallway. Our wedding picture. The irony was not lost on me. Inside the office, everything was neat and organized. Desk, filing cabinets, computer. I started with the filing cabinets. Most of the folders were normal. Tax returns, utility bills, car maintenance records, the mundane paperwork of a normal life. But the bottom drawer was locked. Kim found a letter opener and we forced it. Inside was a different category of documents entirely. These folders had colored tabs instead of labels. Red, blue, yellow. Like a system designed to hide things in plain sight. I opened the first red folder and my world tilted. Documents about my parents, Robert and Linda Hayes. They had died 3 years ago in a small plane crash in Colorado. I had been deployed at the time. I came home for the funeral, dealt with the grief through work, and left the estate matters to Marcus. He said he would handle everything. He said I had enough to worry about. These documents told a different story. My parents' estate was worth $2.3 million, life insurance, property, investments. I had known about some of it, but not all. Marcus had kept the full picture from me. In the folder was a revised will, dated 6 months before my parents died. The original will had left everything to me, their only child. This revised version named Marcus as co-beneficiary and executor. My signature was on the document, but I had never signed it. I had never seen it before in my life. I stared at the signature. It was close. Marcus had practiced, but the R was wrong. I always loop my R's. This one was pointed. A forger's mistake. I opened the blue folder, Power of Attorney documents. giving Marcus control over my finances if I became incapacitated, medical directives allowing Marcus to make decisions if I could not. Both documents signed, both signatures forged, and a letter from Vanessa's law firm confirming that the documents were properly filed with the state. Vanessa was the legal architect of this scheme. She had used her position as an attorney to give Marcus's forgeries the appearance of legitimacy. The next folder contained printed emails, communications between Marcus and Vanessa going back months, discussions of my deployment schedule, notes about timing and opportunity, references to something called Plan B. One email made my hands shake. From Vanessa to Marcus, dated 2 months ago. If she does not come back from this deployment, everything transfers cleanly. If she does come back, we proceed with Plan B. Plan B. Whatever it was, they had been saving the details for conversations that could not be traced. Kim was reading over my shoulder. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Rachel, these people were planning to kill you." I moved to the yellow folder, the last category. Inside were life insurance policies. $1 million on Rachel Morgan. Beneficiary, Marcus Morgan. The policy had been taken out 8 months ago, right before my deployment. My signature was forged. And then another policy, $500,000 on Lily Morgan. Beneficiary, Marcus Morgan. Taken out 6 months ago. A handwritten note was clipped to Lily's policy. Marcus's handwriting. V says Mom can handle this one. Cleaner than an accident. My daughter was worth $500,000 to my husband. That was the price he had put on her life. And Dorothy's permanent solution would have collected it for him. I sat back, trying to breathe, trying to think. The pieces were coming together now. Marcus had married me for access. A soldier, frequently deployed, trusting. When my parents died and left money, the scheme escalated. Vanessa provided the legal cover, forged documents, hidden accounts, power of attorney. But I was a complication. I kept surviving deployments. I kept coming home. And Lily was a complication too. As my biological daughter, she had inheritance rights. If I died overseas, Marcus would get everything. But if Lily was also gone, even cleaner. No complications, no questions. Just a grieving widower collecting insurance checks. Dorothy's discipline program was the perfect cover. A child dies during treatment, a tragic accident. A grieving father who had no idea his mother's methods were so extreme. No suspicion, no investigation, just money. I called Diane and told her what I had found. Her response was immediate. "Do not touch anything else. I am sending agents to secure the house as evidence." This just became a federal conspiracy case. I asked where Marcus was. "We have had him under surveillance since the hospital. He is at Vanessa's office. They have been meeting for 3 hours. Before I left the office, I found one more folder, unlabeled, tucked behind the others. Inside was a newspaper clipping about Caroline's car accident. Single vehicle. Lost control on a mountain road. No witnesses. But also a mechanic's invoice from 2 weeks before the accident. Caroline's car had brake work done at a shop called Harding Auto Service, owned by someone named James Harding. Harding, the same name as Deputy Harding. The deputy who had greeted Dorothy with respect. The deputy who had dismissed every complaint filed against her. I photographed everything, every document, every email, every forged signature. I sent copies to Diane and saved backups to the cloud. This evidence was not going to disappear like Caroline's complaints had. I was about to leave when I heard a car in the driveway. Then another. Through the window I saw Marcus's sedan. And behind it, Vanessa's black Mercedes. They were not supposed to know I was here, but here they were, walking toward the front door together, and I was standing in a room full of evidence that proved they had been planning to kill me and my daughter. Kim drew her weapon and moved to a defensive position. I gathered the most important documents and shoved them into my bag. The forged will, the insurance policies, the emails about Plan B. The front door opened. Marcus's voice echoed through the house. "Rachel, are you here? We need to talk about custody." Vanessa's voice followed, cold and measured. "Rachel, this does not have to be difficult. We can come to an arrangement that benefits everyone. I stepped into the hallway. Kim was behind me, weapon ready. Marcus and Vanessa froze when they saw I was not alone. And when they saw what I was holding, the papers, the evidence, their entire scheme in my hands. Vanessa's mask cracked for just a moment. Fear, raw and real. Then she recovered. Marcus just stared at the documents, his face draining of color. I held up the forged will and the insurance policies. Looking for these? I think we need to talk about Plan B. The four of us stood in that hallway like statues, me and Kim on one side, Marcus and Vanessa on the other, the forged documents in my hand, the truth hanging in the air between us. I had already activated the voice recorder on my phone. It was in my pocket, capturing everything. They did not know. They would not know until it was too late. Vanessa recovered first. She always did. That was her job in this family, fixing things, making problems disappear. She stepped forward with her hands raised, palms out, like she was approaching a frightened animal. Rachel, let us sit down and discuss this like adults. There is no need for hostility. Whatever you think you have found, I am sure there is a reasonable explanation. I held up the life insurance policy with Lily's name on it. A reasonable explanation for insuring my daughter's life 6 months ago? For the note that says Mom can handle this one? Vanessa did not flinch. Insurance is prudent. Every responsible parent has coverage for their children. And the forged will? The power of attorney I never signed? The emails discussing what happens if I do not come back from deployment? She opened her mouth to respond, but Marcus cut her off. He stepped forward, and I saw him shift into a role I recognized. The concerned husband, the misunderstood partner, the victim. Rachel, honey, you have been through a lot. Deployment, stress. Now this situation with Lily. You are not thinking clearly. I kept my voice flat. I am thinking clearly enough to recognize my own forged signature. He shook his head slowly, sadly, like I was a child having a tantrum. You are never here. You are always deployed. Do you know how hard it has been raising Lily alone? She needed discipline, real discipline. I was doing what was best for her. What was best for her? Your mother put our daughter in a hole in the ground, Marcus. She was going to leave her there until she died. Mom's methods are unconventional, but they work. Lily was becoming impossible. Tantrums, defiance, lying. She needed correction. She is 8 years old. His voice hardened. Something ugly surfaced behind his eyes. She is not even... He stopped himself, swallowed the rest of the sentence. But I had heard the beginning. She is not even. Not even what? I saw Vanessa shoot him a warning look. Whatever Marcus had been about to say, it was something they had agreed to keep hidden. Something about Lily that I was not supposed to know. Vanessa took control of the conversation again. Her voice was smooth, professional. The voice she probably used in courtrooms. Rachel, let us be practical. You are a military officer, frequently deployed. Courts look at stability when determining custody. Marcus has been Lily's primary caregiver for years. He has a stable job, a home, community ties. You have been overseas. Are you threatening to take my daughter? I am simply pointing out facts. And if this situation goes public, it will not look good for anyone, including you. How does any of this reflect badly on me? Vanessa smiled, cold, calculated. You left your daughter in an unstable home. You prioritized your career over your family. You were absent when she needed you most. Any family court judge will ask the same question I am asking now. Where was the mother? The accusation landed. I felt it. The guilt I had carried for years, every deployment, every missed birthday, every bedtime story I could not read. She was using my service against me, using my sacrifice as a weapon. But I did not break. I pushed through. And where was the father? Sending her to be tortured by his mother, paying for it with monthly bank transfers? Vanessa leaned forward. Her voice dropped. Caroline thought she could fight this family too. She hired lawyers, filed complaints, made accusations. And where is Caroline now, Rachel? The threat was not even subtle. She was telling me they had killed before. She was telling me they would kill again. I changed tactics. I let my shoulders drop, let my voice soften. Played the part of a woman who was starting to see reason. Maybe we can work something out. I do not want to destroy the family. Vanessa's eyes lit up. She thought she was winning. Marcus relaxed. He started talking more freely, thinking I was coming around. See, this is why I did not tell you about Mom's program. You overreact. Mom was supposed to fix Lily before you got back, just like she fixed the others. You were never supposed to know. The room went silent. Even Vanessa looked alarmed. Marcus had said too much. His need to justify himself had overridden his caution. Fix her? Like she fixed Ellie? Like she fixed the other children buried in her backyard? Marcus realized his mistake. His face went pale. He looked at Vanessa for help. Marcus, do not say another word. Her voice was sharp, commanding. But I had what I needed. On my phone, in my pocket. His confession that Dorothy's fixing was intentional. That he knew about the others. That the entire family had been part of this for years. Kim spoke for the first time. I think we are done here. I moved toward the door. I am taking Lily somewhere safe. I will be in touch through my lawyer. Vanessa tried one more time. Rachel, if you walk out that door with those documents, you are making a mistake. We can still fix this. I looked at her. At the woman who had helped plan my death and my daughter's death. At the polished surface hiding something monstrous underneath. I am done with this family's version of fixing things. Marcus stepped toward me. You cannot take Lily. She is my daughter too. She is in protective custody at a hospital with FBI guards. You are not getting near her. His face twisted. This is not over. No, it is not. But when it is, you will be in prison. Kim and I walked out. She covered my back until we reached the car. We drove in silence for 5 minutes, putting distance between us and that house, before Kim finally exhaled. You got all of that? I showed her my phone, still recording, every word. We drove to the hospital first. I needed to see Lily, needed to make sure she was still safe. The FBI agents were still at her door. Diane had kept her word. Lily was asleep, looking small and fragile in the hospital bed, but her color was better. The monitors beeped steadily. She was going to be okay. I called Diane from the hallway and told her everything, the confrontation, the recording, Marcus's admission about fixing the others, Vanessa's threat using Caroline's death as an example. Diane's response was immediate. We are moving fast now. With your recording and the financial documents, we have enough for arrest warrants. But we need to be careful. Vanessa is connected. She has powerful friends. If we rush, they might escape on technicalities. She told me to take Lily somewhere safe. Not home. Not anywhere connected to Marcus. Kim offered her place. A converted farmhouse on a rural property outside Nashville. Security system, cameras, former military owner who knew how to protect people. I accepted. Lily and I would stay with Kim until this was over. Before we left the hospital, the night nurse pulled me aside. Her face was troubled. Mrs. Morgan, when Lily was talking in her sleep earlier, she kept saying a name, someone named Tommy. She kept asking if Tommy was still in the ground. I did not know who Tommy was. But I filed the name away. Another thread to pull, another secret to uncover. We brought Lily to Kim's farmhouse just after midnight. The property was dark and quiet, surrounded by trees. Kim showed me the security features. Cameras covering every angle, motion sensors on the perimeter, reinforced doors, panic button connected to local police and FBI. I have weapons in every room, Kim said, and I sleep light. If anyone comes here, they will regret it. Lily woke briefly during the transfer. She was confused but trusting. Mommy, are the bad people going to find us? No, baby, Aunt Kim and I are going to keep you safe. And the bad people are going away for a long time. Even Daddy? I hesitated. Then I told her the truth. Even Daddy. I put Lily to bed in Kim's spare room and stayed until she fell asleep. Then I went to the kitchen where Kim had made coffee. It was going to be a long night. Kim looked at me across the table. You know they are not going to go quietly. People like that with money and connections, they fight dirty. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. So do I. I just fight dirtier. We sat in silence, watching the security monitors, waiting for whatever came next. It came at midnight. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. I opened it and my blood turned to ice. Your daughter had an accident once. She can have another. Drop the investigation. Attached was a photograph. Lily in her hospital bed. Taken from inside the room. Not the hallway. Inside. Someone had gotten past the FBI guards. Someone had been in my daughter's room while she slept. Someone had stood over her bed and taken this picture. I showed Kim. She was already on the phone with Diane. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message from the same number. We know where she is now, too. Kim's farmhouse is not as secure as she thinks. Last chance, Rachel. Walk away. They were watching. They had people everywhere. Police, hospitals, maybe even inside the FBI. And they knew exactly where we were. I did not sleep that night. I sat in Kim's living room watching the security cameras, my weapon on the table beside me, waiting for shadows to move. Kim did sweeps every hour, checking the perimeter, testing the motion sensors. Nothing came. The threat had been psychological warfare. They wanted me scared. They wanted me to run. But running was not in my nature. And fear had never stopped me from completing a mission. By dawn, I had made a decision. We could not just wait and react. We could not sit in this farmhouse hoping the FBI moved fast enough. I needed to go on offense. I needed to find something that would break this case wide open before the Morgan family could bury it like they buried everything else. Caroline had left something behind. Mrs. Tate had mentioned it at the crime scene. A hidden box at an old church. Evidence Caroline had gathered before she died. If Vanessa knew about it, she would try to destroy it. I needed to find it first. I called Diane at 6 in the morning and explained my plan. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said what I expected her to say. I cannot officially sanction you investigating, but I cannot stop you either. Just be careful, and call me the moment you find anything. Kim agreed to stay with Lily. Go find what you need, she said. I have got your girl. The address Diane had given me led to a small house on a quiet street outside Henderson County. Well-maintained garden, wind chimes on the porch, the kind of home that belonged to someone who had lived there for decades. Mrs. Delilah Tate opened the door before I could knock. She was 74 years old, white-haired, with sharp eyes that had seen too much and said too little. I have been expecting someone like you for 10 years, she said. Come inside. Her house smelled like lavender and old books. She led me to a sitting room filled with photographs and offered me tea. I declined. She settled into a worn armchair and started talking without prompting, like she had been rehearsing this confession for a decade. Caroline was my neighbor for 3 years. Sweet girl, troubled but sweet. She loved that baby more than anything in this world. Ellie was everything to her. I asked how Caroline had discovered what was happening. She started noticing things when Ellie came back from visits with Dorothy. The child would not speak, would not smile. She flinched at sudden movements. Something inside her had been turned off. Caroline confronted Dorothy, but Dorothy denied everything. Called Caroline hysterical. Told her she was imagining things. Mrs. Tate's hands trembled as she continued. Caroline came to me because she needed someone to believe her. I believed her. But believing was not enough to stop anything. She told me about Caroline's fight, the complaints filed with Child Protective Services, the police reports, the accusations against Dorothy. Each one was dismissed within a week. Witnesses recanted. Evidence disappeared. The sheriff's department treated Caroline like a nuisance, not a victim. Marcus sided with his mother, Mrs. Tate said. Told Caroline she was paranoid. Vanessa got involved and threatened legal action if Caroline did not stop slandering the family. But Caroline would not stop. She started documenting everything herself, photographs, recordings, a timeline of abuse. I asked what happened to the documentation. 3 days before she died, Caroline came to me with a box. She told me where she was hiding it. Said if anything happened to her, someone needed to find it. Mrs. Tate's eyes filled with tears. She said, "Delilah, if I do not make it, promise me you will tell the right person about the box. I have been waiting 10 years to keep that promise." She gave me directions to an abandoned church about 15 minutes away. Grace Baptist Church. It had closed 8 years ago and now sat crumbling in the woods. Caroline used to take Ellie there for Sunday school before everything went wrong. The box was hidden in the old Sunday school room behind a loose stone in the fireplace. 3rd row, 4th from the left. I drove through winding back roads deeper into rural Tennessee. The church appeared through the trees like a ghost. White paint peeling, steeple tilted, windows dark and broken. The kind of place that time had forgotten. I parked and approached carefully. I did not know if I was alone. The Morgan family had eyes everywhere. Inside, the church was frozen in time. Dusty pews, scattered hymnals. Light filtering through shattered stained glass, casting colored shadows on the floor. It smelled like mold and forgotten prayers. I found the Sunday school room at the back. Small chairs sized for children, faded Bible posters on the walls, a stone fireplace that had not held a fire in years. I counted the stones the way Mrs. Tate had described. 3rd row, 4th from the left. The stone was loose. I pulled it free and reached into the darkness behind it. My fingers touched something cold and metal. A box, shoebox sized, sealed with tape that had yellowed with age. I took it outside, into the light, and sat on the church steps. My hands trembled as I cut through the tape. 10 years. This box had been waiting 10 years for someone to find it. Inside was organized chaos. Caroline's desperate archive, everything she had gathered before they killed her. A leather journal filled with dated entries. An envelope of photographs, medical records, audio cassettes labeled with dates and names. Official documents stamped with the word unfounded. And at the bottom, a sealed envelope with a name written on it in shaky handwriting. To whoever finds this. I opened the letter. Caroline's words hit me like blows. If you are reading this, I am probably dead. They probably made it look like an accident. Please do not let them win. She named names. Dorothy, Marcus, Vanessa, Deputy Harding, a CPS supervisor named Christy Vance. They all knew. They all helped. And they buried my daughter to keep their secrets. The last line made me stop breathing. Vanessa has a son, Tommy. He is 5 years old. No one knows about him. If she is capable of helping kill my Ellie, she is capable of doing the same to him. Please check on Tommy. Please. I turned to the photographs. Early pictures showed Ellie happy and healthy, dressed in pretty clothes, smiling at the camera. Then the change came. Her eyes went vacant. Her posture hunched. Her arms were always covered. The last photographs were taken secretly. Bruises on Ellie's back. Burns on her hands. A split lip that no 7-year-old should have. One photograph stopped me cold. Ellie standing in the backyard of Dorothy's property. Beside her, a hole in the ground. The same type of hole Lily had been found in, and in the background, 2 figures watching. Dorothy holding a stopwatch. Vanessa with her arms crossed, observing like a supervisor at a business meeting. The date written on the back was 3 weeks before Ellie disappeared. Vanessa was not just legally involved. She had been there. She had watched. She had participated. I photographed everything and sent copies to Diane. Then I turned to the journal. Caroline's entries documented her unraveling, her growing certainty that something terrible was happening, her frustration as every door slammed in her face. One entry from 8 months before her death. Marcus knows. He has always known. I begged him to help me save Ellie. He said Mom knows best. His own niece, and he just shrugged. Another entry from 4 months before. Vanessa threatened to have me committed if I do not stop. She said she knows a doctor who will sign the papers. Paranoid delusions, she called it. 2 weeks before Ellie disappeared. Something is wrong. Dorothy is acting different. Calm, too calm. She said Ellie is making excellent progress. I am terrified. The final entry, 3 days before Caroline died. I hid the box today. If anything happens to me, find it. Tell the world what they did. Do not let Ellie be forgotten. I used to think family meant safety. Now I know family can be the most dangerous thing of all. I closed the journal. My hands were shaking. Caroline had fought alone for years. She had tried to save her daughter. She had tried to expose the truth. And they had killed her for it. My phone rang. Diane. Rachel, we got the DNA results back on the second set of remains. The ones from the grave you found. I braced myself. Who is it? Male child. Approximately 5 years old at time of death. We ran it against every database. No match. I remembered Caroline's letter. Tommy, Vanessa's secret son. The child no one knew about. Diane, I need you to run a familial DNA match against Vanessa Morgan. Long pause. Why? I told her what I had found. Caroline's letter. The mention of a 5-year-old boy named Tommy. Vanessa's secret. If that is true, Diane said slowly, and she sent her own child to Dorothy. She did not just send him, she eliminated him. Silence on the line. Then Diane spoke. I will have results in 24 hours. Rachel, if this is what we think it is, Vanessa goes away forever. I drove back toward Kim's farmhouse with Caroline's box on the seat beside me. 2 mothers had lost children to that family. Caroline had lost Ellie. Vanessa had sacrificed Tommy. I was not going to be the third. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. Preliminary match. Tommy Brennan Morgan. Vanessa's biological son. Dead approximately 7 years. I pulled over to the side of the road because I could not see through the tears. Vanessa had buried her own child in her mother's backyard, and she had walked away. The DNA confirmation came through at 8 in the morning. Tommy Brennan Morgan, Vanessa's biological son. Born in secret, raised in silence, buried in her mother's backyard at 5 years old. Dead for 7 years while Vanessa built her career and pretended he never existed. I was at the FBI field office in Nashville, watching monitors, waiting for justice to begin. Diane had assembled a task force, 12 agents, coordinated arrests planned across 3 locations. Caroline's evidence box sat on the conference table, officially logged and cataloged. Every photograph, every journal entry, every desperate word from a dead woman who had tried to warn the world. Diane briefed the team, 3 simultaneous arrests. Dorothy was already in custody, but now we had enough to charge her with multiple counts of first-degree murder. Vanessa would be taken at her law office, Marcus at his last known location. Additional warrants had been issued for Deputy Harding, CPS Supervisor Christy Vance, and the medical examiner who had ruled Caroline's death an accident. I asked to observe the interrogations. Diane hesitated. This is going to be ugly, are you sure? I need to see it. I need to understand how the man I married became this. She nodded and led me to an observation room with one-way glass. On the other side, the future was about to change for everyone involved. The arrest feeds came through on monitors. I watched Vanessa's takedown first. She was at her law office meeting with a client when the FBI agents walked through the door. Her face cycled through stages. Surprise, calculation. Then ice-cold composure. She asked to see the warrant and read every word carefully, stalling for time, looking for loopholes. These charges are absurd. I will have this dismissed by tomorrow. The agent in charge was unmoved. Ma'am, you are being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder, and obstruction of justice. Multiple counts. Something flickered across Vanessa's face. She had expected custody issues, financial charges, maybe obstruction, but murder. That word cracked her armor. She was handcuffed in front of her colleagues, her clients, her staff. The polished lawyer led away like a common criminal. As agents escorted her out, she made one phone call. Not to another lawyer. to an unknown number. "They are arresting everyone. Clean the accounts. Burn the files." Too late. The call was intercepted, and FBI teams were already at her home, her office, her storage units. Every number she had dialed in the past 48 hours was now flagged for investigation. In trying to warn her network, she had given us a roadmap. Marcus's arrest did not go as smoothly. Surveillance showed him leaving the house at 4 a.m. with 2 suitcases. He drove toward Nashville International Airport, bought a one-way ticket to Mexico City under a false name. He was trying to run. FBI agents intercepted him at the terminal. He tried to claim harassment, threatened lawsuits, demanded to speak to his lawyer. Then they searched his luggage. $75,000 in cash, a forged passport, documents for a wire transfer to an offshore account. He had been liquidating everything and planning to disappear. I watched through the one-way glass as Marcus was processed at the field office. He looked different, smaller, older, desperate. This was not the confident man I had married. This was a cornered animal realizing the cage had closed. When his eyes swept across the glass, I knew he could not see me. But something in me shifted anyway. The last thread of love, of memory, of what we had once been. It snapped. There was nothing left but the need for justice. Dorothy's interrogation came next. She had been in custody for 3 days, refusing to speak. But with Caroline's evidence now in play, the dynamics had changed. Agent Torres led the questioning. "Mrs. Morgan, we have your journals, we have photographs, we have testimony from survivors. This is your chance to explain." Dorothy sat calmly, eerily so. When she spoke, it was not in defense, it was justification. "My mother taught me, spare the rod, spoil the child. But the rod was not enough for some children. Some needed deeper lessons. The cold teaches humility, the dark teaches obedience, the ground teaches them their place." Torres pressed. "The ground? You mean the graves?" "Preparation. I prepared them to meet their maker. Some were ready quickly, some took longer." She described her methods without emotion, clinical, precise, like a teacher explaining curriculum to an interested student. Isolation in holes, cold exposure, food deprivation, physical restraint. Duration increased based on resistance, outcomes documented carefully. 3 generations, Dorothy said. My grandmother taught my mother. My mother taught me. Our family understands discipline. The world has become too soft. I was preserving the old ways. 3 generations of abuse. Dorothy's grandmother had used the same methods, the same holes in the ground, the same lessons. This was not one monster. It was a bloodline of monsters, each passing the sickness to the next. Vanessa's interrogation was different. She was calculating, not confessing. She demanded a lawyer, refused to answer questions, cited every legal protection she could think of. Then Agent Torres played his card. He slid photographs across the table. Tommy's remains, the DNA results, the birth certificate she had hidden for years. The ice cracked. That was not... I did not want... She stopped, regained control. But too late. Torres pressed harder. You did not want what, Ms. Morgan? You did not want your illegitimate son to interfere with your career? So you sent him to Mommy to be fixed? Vanessa's voice broke. It was supposed to be temporary. She said she would straighten him out, make him easier to manage. I was going to take him back. But you did not take him back, because he was dead within 3 months. Vanessa stared at the photographs, small bones laid out on examination tables. For the first time, something human surfaced in her eyes. Grief, guilt, horror at what she had allowed. I did not know she would. I thought. But there was no ending to that sentence that did not damn her. She asked for a deal, immunity for full testimony against Dorothy and Marcus. Torres shook his head. No immunity. But cooperation might mean the difference between life in prison and death row. Vanessa started talking. The scope expanded with every word. Deputy Harding had been paid $15,000 over 5 years to dismiss complaints and lose reports. Christy Vance, the CPS supervisor, received monthly payments to classify investigations as unfounded. Dr. Benson, the medical examiner, had falsified Caroline's autopsy, ruling her death accidental when the brake lines had been clearly cut. More names emerged: a family court judge, a hospital administrator, a county clerk. The Morgan family had built a network of protection over 20 years. Every pathway to justice had been blocked, bought, or buried. FBI agents fanned out across 3 counties. The evening news led with the story: child abuse conspiracy, arrests sweep Tennessee County. I watched faces I had passed in town, ordinary people who had helped hide murders, being led away in handcuffs. Marcus's interrogation came last. He had spent hours in a holding cell, watching his world collapse. By the time Torres sat down across from him, there was no escape left. But Marcus did not confess. He chose spite. You want to know why I did it? Because I was stuck. Stuck in a marriage to a woman who was never there. Stuck with a kid who was not even mine. I froze behind the glass. Torres leaned forward. What do you mean, not even yours? Marcus laughed, bitter and ugly. Lily is not my biological daughter. I found out 2 years ago. DNA test. She is the product of whatever Rachel did on deployment. He was trying to hurt me, to destroy whatever I had left. He did not know the truth. He only knew the lie I had told myself. Torres glanced at the mirror. He knew I was watching. Marcus kept going. Ask Rachel about what happened 9 years ago. Ask her about the real father. She never told anyone. But I know. I have always known she was hiding something. His spite poured out, ugly and uncontained. He blamed me for everything. For being deployed. For not being the wife he wanted. For having a daughter he did not believe was his. When the interrogation ended, Diane found me in the hallway. My face was pale. My hands were shaking. Rachel, what he said in there. It is true. Lily is not his biological daughter. The words came out before I could stop them. The truth I had buried for 9 years. The assault during training. The pregnancy I had convinced myself was from my marriage. The lie that had seemed easier than facing what had really happened. Diane's voice was gentle. Rachel, that is not something to be ashamed of. You survived something terrible, I know. But Marcus did not know that. He just knew Lily was not his, and he used it as an excuse to hate her. My phone buzzed. A text from Kim. Lily is asking for you. She keeps asking why Daddy said she was not his. Rachel, someone told her. Vanessa. It had to be Vanessa. One last act of cruelty before the cell door closed. She had made sure my daughter knew her father's final words. I ran to my car. My daughter was alone with a truth no 8-year-old should have to carry. And I was the only one who could explain it. I drove through the night, breaking every speed limit. My hands gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. My mind raced faster than the car. What did Lily hear? Who told her? How much does she know? I called Kim on speaker. Her voice was tense. She woke up screaming. Nightmare. When I went to comfort her, she asked me if it was true that Daddy is not her real daddy. Did she say who told her? She said a lady called. Said she was Aunt Vanessa. Said Daddy told everyone at the police station that Lily was not really his. Vanessa, from a jail phone, using her one call to poison a child. She could not win, so she decided to make sure I lost everything too. She used my daughter as her final weapon. Kim's voice softened. Rachel, she is asking questions I cannot answer. She needs you. I pushed the accelerator harder. 20 minutes felt like hours. Kim's farmhouse appeared through the trees. Porch light on. Security cameras watching. I barely stopped the car before running inside. Kim met me in the hallway and pointed toward the spare bedroom. Her face said everything. This was bad. I found Lily curled in a ball on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, face buried in the pillow. She was not crying anymore. She had gone somewhere deeper than tears. Somewhere quiet and scared. I sat on the edge of the bed and touched her shoulder. She flinched. Then she saw it was me and threw herself into my arms, clinging so tight I could barely breathe. Mommy, is it true? Daddy said I am not his. The lady said everyone knows now. I held her, felt her small body trembling against mine. I had known this conversation would come eventually. I had imagined it happening when she was older, when she could understand complexity and nuance. Not like this. Not at 8 years old in the middle of the night, after everything she had already been through. Sweetheart, I need to tell you something. But first, I need you to know that you are my daughter, mine. No matter what, that will never ever change. But Daddy. What Daddy said, there is more to the story. And I am going to tell you the truth because you deserve the truth. Kim quietly closed the bedroom door, giving us privacy. I took a deep breath and let myself go back. 9 years. I had buried it so deep I almost believed it had never happened. Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I was 29 years old. A specialist, recently engaged to Marcus. A training exercise had run late, and most of the unit had returned to barracks. I was walking to my vehicle alone in the dark when a fellow soldier offered to walk with me. Someone I knew, someone I trusted. I said yes. What happened next took 7 minutes. 7 minutes that changed everything. I never reported it. He was well connected. I was new. I told myself no one would believe me. I told myself it was easier to bury it, to pretend it never happened, to keep moving forward. 2 months later, I discovered I was pregnant. The timing made it possible that Marcus was the father. I chose to believe that. I needed to believe that. I married Marcus 3 weeks later and never told anyone the truth. Until now. I looked at my daughter's tear-stained face and chose my words carefully. Truth, but age-appropriate. Enough to explain without destroying. Lily, before you were born, something happened to Mommy. Something scary and bad. Someone hurt me. Her eyes widened. Like how Grandma hurt me? Different, but yes. Someone hurt me when I did not want to be hurt. I was so sad and scared. But then I found out you were growing inside me. And suddenly I was not scared anymore, because I had you. She processed this slowly, her young mind working hard. So Daddy is not my real daddy? Daddy is not your biological father. That means you did not come from his body. You came from mine. You are still my daughter. You will always be my daughter. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question that cracked my heart. Is that why Daddy was mean to me? I pulled her closer. Daddy was mean to you because something is broken inside him. Not because of you. Never because of you. You did nothing wrong. Mommy, do you still love me, even though I came from the bad thing? I held her so close I could feel her heartbeat against mine. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You are not where you came from. You are who you choose to be. And I love you more than anything in this world. She was quiet again, processing. Then she asked another question. So, I do not have a daddy anymore? Marcus made choices that mean he cannot be your daddy anymore. He is going to be in trouble for a long time. But you have me. And you have Aunt Kim. And people who love you. Like a family? Just different? Exactly. A different kind of family. But still a real one. She thought about this. Then she yawned. The emotional exhaustion was hitting her. I am glad you are my mommy, even if the other stuff is confusing. It is confusing, and it is okay to feel sad or angry or confused. I will be here for all of it. Can you stay until I fall asleep? I am not going anywhere. Ever. She did not understand everything. How could she? But she understood the most important thing. I loved her, and I was not leaving. For an 8-year-old who had just had her world shattered, that was enough to hold on to. I lay beside her until her breathing slowed, and her grip on my hand relaxed. Then I carefully extracted myself and went to the kitchen, where Kim had made coffee. I sat at the table and let the weight of everything settle over me. Marcus had discovered the DNA truth 2 years ago. That was when everything changed. I remembered it now. How he became colder toward Lily, more critical, less patient, the dismissive comments, the constant comparisons to other children, the insistence that she needed discipline. He had never confronted me, never asked for an explanation. He had just started punishing the child. Every session at Dorothy's, every cruel word, every dismissal. It was revenge. Revenge against an 8-year-old for something that happened before she was born. He could have asked me. He could have demanded answers. He could have left the marriage. Instead, he tortured a child and planned to profit from her death. Kim appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. Diane called. You should call her back. Something about the custody case. I dialed Diane's number. She answered on the first ring, and her voice was tired but alert. Rachel, I wanted to warn you before morning. The Morgan family has hired new lawyers. Big firm out of Memphis. They are already filing motions. Motions for what? They are challenging your fitness as a parent. Claims of PTSD, emotional instability, abandonment due to military service. They are going to try to take Lily. They are in jail. How can they fight for custody from jail? Dorothy's lawyers are arguing she is an elderly woman being persecuted. Vanessa is claiming she was coerced by Marcus. And Marcus is claiming he was the stable parent while you were deployed. They are going to spin this as a mother who abandoned her child to her career, then came home and made wild accusations. My blood ran cold. I had thought the arrests were the end. They were just the beginning. They murdered children, Diane. They buried them in the backyard. They planned to kill my daughter. And their first move from behind bars is to try to take her away legally. The Morgan family never stops fighting, even in handcuffs. I looked toward the bedroom where Lily slept. I had pulled her out of a grave. I had exposed a conspiracy. I had survived everything they had thrown at me. And now they wanted to use the courts to finish what Dorothy's holes could not. I stood up. My voice was steady. I am going to fight. I did not survive deployment after deployment, did not uncover a murder conspiracy, did not face down the people who tried to kill my daughter just to lose her in a courtroom. I picked up my phone and dialed another number, Julia Vasquez, a lawyer friend from the base, former JAG officer now in private practice, the best family law attorney I knew. She answered on the third ring. Julia, it is Rachel Morgan. I need help. My in-laws are trying to take my daughter, and they are willing to burn everything down to do it. Julia's response was immediate. Tell me everything. And Rachel, do not worry. I have been waiting to take on a case like this my whole career. Let us go to war. War, yes. That was exactly what this was. And I had never lost a war yet. 6 months of preparation. 6 months of depositions, motions, hearings, and waiting. 6 months of rebuilding my life with Lily while the legal machinery ground toward this day. Now I stood outside the Henderson County Courthouse, morning of day 1, watching the circus that had gathered to witness justice. The building was old, limestone and columns, built in a time when justice moved slower and communities trusted their institutions. Media trucks lined the street, reporters with cameras and microphones waited on the steps. This case had gone national, the headlines wrote themselves: Grandmother of Graves, Tennessee House of Horrors, Children in the Ground. I wore my army dress uniform, deliberate choice. Armor and identity. A reminder to everyone in that courtroom who I was and what I had done for my country. Diane met me at the steps. Her face was focused, ready. You okay? I have been ready for 6 months. Let us end this. Inside, the courthouse was packed. Reporters filled the gallery. Families of other victims sat in the front rows. Neighbors and witnesses who had finally found their courage. Mrs. Tate was there, dressed in black, clutching a photograph of Carolyn. At the defense table sat Dorothy Morgan. She looked nothing like the woman who had stood in her doorway that night, calm and unapologetic. Someone had transformed her. Modest dress, gray hair styled softly, reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked like a grandmother from a holiday card, someone who baked cookies and told bedtime stories. That was the point. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Chen delivered the opening statement for the prosecution. He was methodical, precise, devastating. The defendant did not just abuse children. She created a system for destroying them, a business model for murder. He laid out the evidence piece by piece. 3 sets of remains recovered from the property. Journals documenting treatments that were really torture. Photographs showing bruises and burns on small bodies. Financial records proving parents had paid for the privilege of having their children broken. Chen showed the jury a photograph. The 3 holes in Dorothy's backyard, excavated, bones visible against dark earth. Several jurors looked away. One woman covered her mouth. A man in the back row wiped his eyes. Ellie Brennan, age 7. Tommy Morgan, age 5. Sophia Delgado, age 6. These children had names. They had futures. Dorothy Morgan buried them in her backyard like trash. He paused to let that sink in. Over the next week, you will hear testimony from survivors, from investigators, from the woman who discovered this horror. And you will understand that Dorothy Morgan is not a misguided grandmother. She is a serial killer who targeted the most vulnerable victims of all, children entrusted to her care. The defense attorney, Patricia Whitfield, took her turn. Expensive suit, calm demeanor, careful words. Her strategy was clear from the first sentence. Dorothy as victim, not villain. My client is a 70-year-old woman who dedicated her life to helping troubled children. Did she use old-fashioned methods? Yes. Was she sometimes too strict? Perhaps. But murder? She pointed to Dorothy, who dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief on cue. Dorothy Morgan comes from a generation that believed in firm discipline. She was raised this way. She raised her own children this way. When desperate parents came to her, begging for help with children they could not control, she tried to help. The deaths, if they occurred at all, were tragic accidents. A child who wandered off, another who had a medical condition. These were not murders. These were an elderly woman's desperate attempts to help, gone terribly wrong. I watched the jury. Some faces showed uncertainty. Whitfield was good. She made Dorothy sound like a victim of her generation, her upbringing, her good intentions. She turned murder into misunderstanding. And some jurors wanted to believe. Nobody wants to think grandmothers kill children. Day 2. My turn on the stand. Chen guided me through the night of discovery. I described everything, coming home early from deployment, finding Lily's room empty, the drive through the mountains, the hole, my daughter shaking in the cold. What did your daughter say when you found her? She said, Mommy, do not look in the other hole. The courtroom was silent. I described looking anyway. The bones, the skull, the scraps of fabric that might have been a dress with yellow flowers. What did you do then? I took photographs for evidence. Then I got my daughter out of there. Whitfield's cross-examination tried to paint me as unstable. She brought up my military service, my deployments, my PTSD diagnosis. Is it not true that you suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder? I have PTSD. It makes me hyper-vigilant, not delusional. The bones in that hole were real. The children who died were real. My daughter's trauma is real. She tried other angles. My absences, my career focus, my decision to leave Lily with Marcus. I answered every question directly. I did not flinch. I did not break. Whitfield tried for 45 minutes to crack me. She questioned my memory, my mental health, my parenting choices. But I had faced mortars in combat. A lawyer in heels was not going to make me fold. Day 3 brought the hardest evidence. Lily's video deposition. She had recorded it weeks earlier, in a child-friendly room with a psychologist guiding the questions. I was not allowed to be present during the recording. Now I sat in the gallery and watched my daughter on the screen, small and brave, telling the truth. Her voice was thin but steady. Grandma put me in the hole. She said bad girls sleep in graves. She said if I cried I would have to stay longer. How long were you in the hole? I do not know. It was light when she put me in. Then it was dark. Then it was really cold. Did anyone else know you were there? Lily hesitated on the screen. Daddy knew. He dropped me off. He told me to be good and listen to Grandma. The jury shifted, murmured. One father in the front row looked at Marcus, seated behind bulletproof glass in his prison jumpsuit, with undisguised contempt. Lily's testimony continued. She described the rules, the punishments, the other children she had seen. There was a girl before me. Her name was Sophia. She was in the hole next to mine. Then one day she was not there anymore. Grandma said she graduated. Graduated. Dorothy's word for murder. An 8-year-old had heard it and repeated it without understanding what it meant. But the jury understood. Every single one of them. Day 4. Vanessa Morgan took the stand for the prosecution. She had accepted a plea deal. 20 years in exchange for full testimony. She wore prison orange now. No makeup. Hair pulled back. She looked nothing like the polished lawyer who had threatened me in my own home. Chen walked her through the conspiracy. Vanessa confirmed everything. She had helped cover up complaints, destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses. She had known about the discipline program for years. And your son, Tommy? What happened to him? Her voice broke. I sent him to my mother when he was 4. He was difficult. I thought she could help. 3 months later, she told me he had run away. I knew what that meant. And I said nothing. Why? Long pause. Because I was afraid of her, and because admitting it meant admitting what I had done. The jury stared at her. A mother who had sacrificed her own son to protect herself. Day 5. Closing arguments, then deliberation. Chen was devastating. 3 children are dead. The evidence is overwhelming. Dorothy Morgan knew exactly what she was doing. She documented it. She profited from it. She would have killed again if Rachel Morgan had not come home early. Justice demands accountability. Whitfield appealed to sympathy, old age, misunderstanding, good intentions gone wrong. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, I took my seat in the gallery. Diane sat beside me. The forewoman stood, middle-aged, steady hands, clear voice. On the count of first-degree murder of Ellie Brennan, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of first-degree murder of Tommy Morgan? Guilty. On the count of first-degree murder of Sofia Delgado? Guilty. Guilty on all 23 counts. Murder, conspiracy, child abuse, obstruction. The word echoed through the courtroom like a drumbeat. Dorothy sat motionless, finally understanding that her dynasty of discipline was over. She would die in prison. The judge moved immediately to sentencing. Dorothy Morgan, you have been found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder, 12 counts of aggravated child abuse, and 8 counts of conspiracy and obstruction. You showed no mercy to the children in your care. This court will show you the same. I sentence you to 3 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. She was led away in handcuffs. Silent, face blank. Outside the courthouse, Diane found me. It is not over. Marcus's trial is next month, and the custody hearing is in 2 weeks. 1 down. But the hardest fight was still ahead. Marcus would try to destroy me in court to avoid his own destruction. And the custody battle would determine if I got to keep my daughter. Dorothy was going to prison. Now I had to make sure I did not lose everything else. The dominoes fell one after another in the 2 weeks following Dorothy's conviction. I attended every sentencing hearing, bearing witness to the collapse of the Morgan Empire. Justice moved slowly, but it moved. Marcus was first. 20 years in federal prison for conspiracy to commit murder, child endangerment, financial fraud, and insurance fraud. He stood before the judge in his orange jumpsuit, refusing to look at me. The man I had married, the man I had trusted with our daughter. The judge's words echoed through the courtroom. You sent your own daughter to be tortured and potentially killed. You planned to profit from her death. This court has rarely seen such calculated cruelty from a parent. Marcus said nothing. No remorse, no explanation. Just silence as they led him away. Vanessa came next. 15 years per her plea agreement. She had testified against everyone, including her own mother, but cooperation only went so far. She had helped bury children. She had sacrificed her own son. No amount of testimony could wash that away. Deputy Harding got 10 years for obstruction, evidence tampering, and accessory after the fact. The man who had greeted Dorothy with respect while children's bones lay in her backyard. The man whose brother had worked on Caroline's brakes 2 weeks before she died. Christy Vance, the CPS supervisor, received 8 years for conspiracy and dereliction of duty. She had classified every complaint as unfounded. She had taken monthly payments to look the other way. Children had died because she chose money over their safety. Dr. Benson, the medical examiner who had falsified Caroline's autopsy, got 12 years. He had ruled her death accidental when the brake lines showed clear evidence of tampering. He had helped them get away with murder. In total, 7 convictions. 118 years of combined prison time. 118 years for 3 dead children, 1 traumatized survivor, and 1 woman murdered for asking questions. It still did not feel like enough. But it was a start. I thought the criminal convictions would end the fight. I was wrong. The Morgan family had resources, old money, connections, lawyers on retainer even from behind bars. A distant cousin named Harold Morgan filed for emergency custody of Lily 2 days after Dorothy's sentencing. His argument was simple and vicious. Rachel Morgan is unfit. PTSD, frequent military absences, erratic behavior, emotional instability. Harold presented himself as the stable alternative, successful business owner, married 23 years, nice house in the suburbs, no criminal record. On paper, he looked reasonable. That was the danger. Julia Vasquez, my lawyer, explained the strategy during our first meeting. They know they cannot win on the facts. So they are attacking your character. They will paint you as unstable, absent, dangerous. I served this country for 15 years. I uncovered a murder conspiracy. I saved my daughter. Julia nodded. And they will say you are traumatized, obsessed, incapable of providing stability. Family courts sometimes favor appearance over reality. We need to be prepared. The hearing was set for 2 weeks out. 14 days to build my case against a family that had been building theirs for generations. I gathered everything. Service records showing 15 years of honorable duty, commendations for leadership and courage. Psychological evaluations from military doctors confirming my PTSD was managed and did not impair my parenting. Letters of support from everyone who knew me. Diane wrote a letter describing my courage in exposing the conspiracy. Kim wrote about watching me care for Lily in the weeks after the rescue. My commanding officer wrote about my dedication and integrity. Even Mrs. Tate, Caroline's old neighbor, submitted a statement about the strength it took to finish what Caroline had started. I met with Dr. Amara Washington, the child psychologist who had evaluated Lily. Her report was clear and direct. Lily exhibits classic trauma responses, but she is remarkably resilient. Her attachment to her mother is secure. Removing her from Rachel's care would constitute a second trauma, potentially more damaging than the first. I underwent my own evaluation. The results confirmed what I already knew. PTSD present but managed. No evidence of psychosis, delusion, or unfitness. Patient demonstrates strong coping mechanisms and deep parental commitment. Julia built our case piece by piece. Rachel is not just fit. She is the only person who protected Lily when everyone else failed. The night before the hearing, I could not sleep. I watched Lily sleeping in Kim's guest room, peaceful for the first time in months. Her color was good. Her nightmares had faded. She was healing. I made a silent promise. No one would take this child from me. No one. The custody hearing took place in a smaller courtroom. No media allowed. Just lawyers, a judge, a court recorder, and the future of a child hanging in the balance. Judge Patricia Holbrook presided, 60 years old, known for thorough deliberation. She studied everyone who entered her courtroom with sharp, assessing eyes. Harold Morgan sat with his lawyers at one table. He wore a nice suit and an expression of appropriate concern, the picture of a reasonable man offering to help a troubled situation. I sat with Julia at the other table. My hands were steady, my mind was focused. Harold's lawyers presented first. They painted me as unstable, multiple deployments, PTSD diagnosis, history of confrontational behavior. She assaulted a crime scene before proper authorities arrived. They presented Harold as the stable alternative. Successful business owner, married 23 years, no criminal record, a calm, stable home for a traumatized child. They even called a witness, a psychologist hired by the Morgan family. In my professional opinion, Ms. Morgan's trauma responses could be triggered by parenting stress, potentially endangering the child. Their psychologist had never met me, never evaluated me, never spoken to Lily. He had been paid to deliver an opinion that served the Morgan family's interests, just like every other professional they had bought over the years. Julia presented our case methodically. First, my military record, 15 years of service, multiple commendations, spotless conduct. This woman has protected her country with distinction. She applied those same instincts to protect her daughter. Second, the psychological evaluations. Every qualified professional who has actually evaluated Rachel Morgan has found her fit, stable, and dedicated. Third, the timeline of abuse. Every time Marcus sent Lily to Dorothy, every complaint that was ignored, every warning sign that was missed. Harold Morgan is asking this court to place Lily with the same family that tortured her, the same family that killed 3 children, the same family that tried to kill her. Fourth, the letters of support. 17 people who knew me, worked with me, trusted me. And on the other side, a family that buried children and bought silence. Finally, Dr. Washington's report. Julia read the key passage aloud. Removing Lily from Rachel's care would constitute a second trauma, potentially more damaging than the first. Lily Morgan has one functioning parent. That parent is Rachel. Judge Holbrook listened to everything. Her face revealed nothing. Then she made a request. I would like to speak with Lily privately. In chambers. Standard practice. Let the child express preference without parental pressure. But the waiting was agony. I sat in the courtroom while Lily was escorted to the judge's office. 30 minutes passed, 45, an hour. I stared at the door and tried to breathe. Finally, it opened. Judge Holbrook returned to the bench. Her face was still unreadable. Lily walked straight to me and climbed into my lap, her small arms wrapped around my neck. She held on like she would never let go. The judge spoke. I have spoken with Lily Morgan at length. She is a remarkably articulate and self-aware child, given what she has been through. I asked her where she wanted to live. Her answer was immediate and unwavering. Judge Holbrook looked at me. She said, I want to stay with my mommy. She came for me when everyone else left me in the ground. Tears streamed down my face. I held Lily tighter. The judge continued. This case has been presented as a question of stability versus instability. But the real question is simpler. Who protected this child? The Morgan family, through action and inaction, allowed Lily to be abused. Harold Morgan, though not criminally implicated, seeks custody on behalf of a family that nearly killed her. This court will not reward that family with another victim. Rachel Morgan served her country with honor. When she discovered her daughter in danger, she acted immediately and effectively. She has cooperated fully with law enforcement. Every professional evaluation supports her fitness as a parent. Judge Holbrook's voice was firm. It is the ruling of this court that full legal and physical custody of Lily Morgan is granted to Rachel Morgan, effective immediately. Furthermore, all visitation rights for the Morgan family are permanently terminated. This child will have no further contact with that family unless she chooses otherwise as an adult. I exhaled, a breath I had been holding for months. Julia squeezed my hand. You won. Lily whispered in my ear. "Does this mean we get to stay together forever? Forever, baby, forever." We walked out of the courthouse together. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Lily held my hand and looked up at me. "Mommy, what happens now?" I thought about everything, the graves, the trials, the secrets, the pain. And then I thought about what came next. A new home, a new school, therapy, healing, time. Now we go home, sweetheart. Our new home, just you and me, and Aunt Kim. I smiled, and Aunt Kim, and Dr. Washington, and all the people who love you. We reached the car. I looked back at the courthouse one last time. I thought of Caroline, of Ellie, of the children who did not survive. I promised them silently. Their deaths were not for nothing. Lily fell asleep on the drive home. Peaceful, safe, mine. The war was over. Now came the hardest part, learning to live in peacetime. 1 year later, I stood on the porch of our new house watching the sunrise paint the Tennessee hills in shades of gold and pink. A modest craftsman bungalow near Fort Campbell, smaller than the house I had shared with Marcus, simpler, but it was ours, mine and Lily's. Every room held new memories now, good ones. The yard had a garden Lily had planted in the spring, tomatoes and sunflowers and herbs I could not name, but she insisted we needed. Wind chimes hung by the front door, a gift from Kim. They caught the morning breeze and filled the air with soft music. Inside, I could hear Lily singing along to the radio while she made breakfast. Pancakes, her specialty now. She was 9 years old, taller than she had been, stronger in ways that went beyond physical growth. Her laugh came easier each month. Her nightmares visited less often. The therapist said she was remarkably resilient. I knew the truth. Lily had survived because she chose to fight, just like her mother. I thought about her journey over the past year, new school. She had been nervous at first, convinced the other kids would somehow know what had happened to her. But children are more adaptable than we give them credit for. She made friends quickly, joined the soccer team and discovered she was fast. Faster than anyone expected. Therapy twice a week with Dr. Washington. The sessions were lighter now, more about coping than crisis. Lily still had triggers, small dark spaces, the sound of digging, certain tones of voice that reminded her of Dorothy. But she was learning to manage them, learning to breathe through the fear instead of drowning in it. She had started keeping a journal, Dr. Washington's suggestion, writing about her feelings, her fears, her hopes. One day I found an entry she had left open on purpose. I knew she wanted me to see it. I used to be scared of the dark. Now I know the dark cannot hurt me. Only people can. And my mom protects me from the bad people. I had cried for an hour after reading those words. Now Lily wanted to help other kids who had been hurt. She volunteered at a children's center on weekends, reading to younger kids, playing games, just being present. "I know what it feels like to be scared," she told me. "I want to show them it gets better." 9 years old, and she already understood that healing happens when we stop hiding. That some truths need to be shared. My own journey had been just as significant. I had transferred to an administrative position at Fort Campbell. No more deployments. No more months away from my daughter. I was home every night now, present for every soccer game, every nightmare, every breakthrough. The PTSD did not disappear. It never does, but I managed it better now. Weekly therapy, meditation, a support group for military parents dealing with trauma. I had learned that asking for help was not weakness, it was strategy. I sold the old house and split nothing with Marcus. The court gave me everything as restitution for what he had done. The money from my parents' estate went into a trust for Lily's education. She would have choices, options, a future built on something other than lies. I had started volunteering too, an organization that helps military families recognize signs of child abuse. I spoke at training sessions, shared my story without using names. "Trust your instincts," I told them. "If something feels wrong, it probably is. Do not wait for permission to protect your child." The work was hard sometimes, triggering, but meaningful. I had turned my worst experience into a weapon against future harm. This morning I had a special errand. I told Lily where we were going while she flipped pancakes. She nodded solemnly. I want to bring flowers. We drove to a small cemetery outside Nashville. Quiet place, old trees, the kind of cemetery where people are buried and remembered, not just forgotten. Caroline Morgan's grave was simple. Just her name and the dates of her too short life. No one from the Morgan family had visited since the trials. The flowers from the funeral had long since turned to dust. I knelt beside the headstone and placed my hand on the cold stone. I never met you. But you saved my daughter. Your evidence, your courage, your refusal to give up. It made all the difference. Lily placed her bouquet carefully. Wild flowers she had picked from our garden. Mommy told me about you, she said softly. You tried to save Ellie. You tried to tell people what was happening. She fought alone, I told Lily. For years. Nobody believed her. Lily looked at me with those old soul eyes. But you believed her, even after she was gone. Sometimes that is how it works. We fight the battles we can and hope someone finishes what we started. We stood in silence for a moment. I promised Caroline silently that Ellie would not be forgotten. None of them would be forgotten. A letter had arrived last week. I thought about it on the drive home. From a woman named Denise Hayward. Her daughter Mia had been at Dorothy's property for 2 weeks, 5 years ago. Mia survived physically, but she came home different, broken in ways Denise could not understand. Until she saw the news coverage. I sent my daughter to that woman because I did not know what else to do. I thought I was helping her. I spent 5 years not understanding why my child flinched when I hugged her. Thank you for exposing the truth. Now Mia and I can finally start healing. Because of you, we know it was not our fault. I kept that letter in my nightstand drawer. I had received dozens like it. From other parents, from survivors, from people who just needed to know that justice was possible. Every letter reminded me that this story was not just mine. Dozens of families had been touched by Dorothy's evil. And now, because the truth was finally told, they could begin to heal too. That evening, Kim came over for dinner. She had become family now, an aunt in everything but blood. We ate on the back porch, laughing about small things, enjoying the simple pleasure of being together. Lily told a story about a boy at school who had tried to scare her with a spider. I just looked at him and said, I have been through worse than bugs. He did not know what to say. We laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes from survival. After Kim left, Lily and I sat together on the porch swing watching stars appear. The night was quiet, peaceful, safe. Mommy, can I ask you something? Anything, baby. Why did you come home early that night? The night you found me? I thought about her question. The official answer was simple. Diplomatic resolution ended the deployment early. But that was not what she was really asking. Why had I driven through the night instead of waiting until morning? Why had I refused to accept Marcus's explanation? Why had I looked in the second hole when she begged me not to? I cannot explain it, sweetheart. Something just told me. A feeling in my gut. A voice in my head that said something was wrong. Like a superpower? I smiled. Maybe. Or maybe it is just what happens when you love someone so much that nothing can stop you from protecting them. She thought about this. I hope I have that feeling someday. When I am a mom. You will, baby. It is not something you learn. It is something you become. She nodded, satisfied. We watched the stars in comfortable silence. Later, after Lily fell asleep on the swing, I carried her to bed and tucked her in. I watched her sleep for a moment. Peaceful. Safe. Mine. I walked back to the porch and looked at the stars one last time. I thought about everything, the graves, the trials, the betrayals, the victories. Caroline, who died fighting. Ellie and Tommy and Sophia, who should have grown up. Marcus, rotting in prison. Dorothy, spending her final years in a cell. And I thought about myself. A woman who trusted her instincts when everyone said she was wrong. A mother who pulled her daughter out of a grave and refused to stop fighting until justice was served. I thought about all the mothers out there who might be feeling what I felt that night. The doubt, the fear, the nagging voice that says something is wrong while everyone else says you are overreacting. That is my story. A mother who came home early, trusted her gut, and found her daughter standing in a grave. I share it now because maybe you are listening, and something in your life feels wrong. Maybe someone is telling you that you are overreacting. Maybe you are afraid to trust yourself. Trust yourself. That instinct exists for a reason. It might be the only thing standing between your child and something unthinkable. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you to listen to that voice inside, I hope you will share it. Tell the mothers in your life. Tell the fathers. Tell anyone who needs to hear that protecting your child is never an overreaction. Leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me about a time you trusted your instincts. Or tell me about a time you wish you had. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about justice, about survival, about ordinary people who refuse to give up, subscribe to this channel. Click the notification bell so you never miss one. Because these stories matter. They remind us that we are not alone. They teach us that courage comes in many forms, and sometimes they save lives. Yours might save someone too. I am Rachel. This was my story. But in some ways it belongs to all of us. Every parent who ever felt that pull of instinct. Every survivor who ever found the strength to fight back. Every person who ever believed that justice was worth pursuing. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying until the end. I will see you in the next one. This story is fictionalized for dramatic effect.